Okay, Roger, Patty, and anybody else who checks in after the fact, glad to have you catching up with us on the life of Jacob. And for those of us who are in town and here, let's begin with a word of prayer. Gracious God, center our hearts and minds on your word. And through the life of Jacob, help us to see the life of discipleship as limping with you in the ways that you wrestle with us and we wrestle with you. And that through Jacob's and Esau and their families' stories, we can see connections to our own. And that all of us, like Jacob, can have faith in your promises and how those promises were fulfilled in your son Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we know we didn't get super far into chapter 25 last week, so Genesis 25 is still going to work for us today. We left off with, we talked a lot about Rebecca's pregnancy. She was finally pregnant after 20 years of prayer that this would happen, and then this pregnancy was painful or difficult. It was something, and so she was saying, now, oh Lord, why am I alive? Like, I can't live like this if it's going to be like this. And then the Lord gives her this prophecy about the two nations that are in her womb, which is quite a thing. We all wonder about how our kids might turn out, but God says, oh, they'll turn out, but they'll end up living in different cities, and even worse. And then down in verse 24, we'll pick it up with the actual birth. When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, and all his body like a hairy mantle. So they named him Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand gripping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Now we got to pause here again. We can get a lot out of just a few verses. So we know Esau's name means red, and he wasn't just red-headed. He was a hairy baby. He was a furry baby, and in a lot we'll see in the next few paragraphs that Esau is characterized a little bit more animalistic than Jacob. We'll see that Jacob's kind of a softy or a mama's boy, and Esau is a man's man, and to the point of being, likened to an animal in how he wanted to eat when he was so hungry. So these brothers could not be more different. And if you have multiple children, you really didn't have anything to do with these different personalities that God gave you. We after a while we joked that one of our kids would have been our only child if he had come first instead of when he did. And you just you get what you get, and you think he had something to do with it. But Esau and Jacob come out striving. The hairy baby comes out first, and right after him, on his heels, literally, is Jacob. Jacob's trying to pull him back into the womb, which is really something. The oldest brother, he's not going to let his oldest brother get too far ahead of him. I'm just curious, real quick. I'm the oldest of eventually 5 kids, so four kids of my parents, and then one youngest of my stepdad and my mom. I'm curious where you fall in birth order.
Last of 5.
Last of 5, okay.
Just me.
Only child?
Oldest 4.
Last of 4.
Last of 4.
Okay. So Audrey and Al are like the last of 4 or 5, and then we have an only child, and then we have an oldest. So we've got a variety. We don't have any middle children. They're not in church, I guess. All right. Well, if you're watching at home, you can chime in sometime and tell us where you fall. Now, I'm not a psychoanalyst, but there are some really interesting books about birth order. And I'm sure if Mary was here, she's studied it, I'm sure, and can tell us all about birth order. But it is kind of fascinating now. This very early biblical family has given us a real taste of sibling rivalry and of sibling difference. Did these come from the same mother and father, the same womb? Has this hairy baby over here and this striving heel grabber over there? So Esau's name means red. Jacob's name means heel. And it's just so funny. I mentioned this briefly last week. We pick out our kids' names. Some of it's a family name. Some of it's a biblical name. or we look up baby names and just finally are like, we got to pick one, you know, uh, and Jacob and Esau got their names after they were born, and their parents took a look at them and were like, huh, this is kind of it. Talk about enshrining somebody's personality at a really early age. Like, you know, Mom, what does my name mean? Oh, it means heel. Why is that? Because you were grabbing at your brother from the start, trying to get ahead of him and pull him back. And it's like, my goodness, you know, that's quite a name you put on me, right?
I asked my mother once why she named me what she did, because
Yeah.
Audrey is not a real common name. She didn't know.
Mhm.
There was a cartoon years ago, Little Audrey,
Oh, okay.
and I always wondered if she had just kind of got that in the back of her mind, but I thought, well, I'm the last of 5, maybe she just
Right.
picked one.
Yeah.
No family names like that.
Yeah. There are some families where the names follow a pattern, and then you get the last one, and it's like Bob or something. You know, it's like that's a kind of a turn. Yeah. Yeah, and of course later on, you know, after Esau is cheated out of his birthright and his father's blessing, he's going to say, you know, see, he was named heel this whole time. He was perfectly named, and he's cheated me, you know, for the last time. And Chad Bird points out that, you know, we're trying to live up to our names, and Jacob is actively living down to his name, and going that route. Okay. Of course, we can think a lot about ambition, about just a little metaphor of, you know, who knows what Jacob really, he's just a baby. He's just born. We're giving him a hard time right at his birthday. And yet his life is going to begin to tell this story of ambition and stopping at nothing to get what you need and what you want. You know, so again, we got this amazing juxtaposition. It's so good for people like us that we're going to end up seeing that God has indeed called Jacob, has favored Jacob, will come and meet Jacob and cause him to limp for the rest of his life and rename him Israel. And out of Jacob's sons will come the nations of Israel. And God's chosen Jacob. And yet Jacob's a crook and Jacob's a cheat. And, you know, and God's chosen the heel of the family. And God's chosen the younger son. And, you know, and so it goes. So, you know, we think about this ambitious young man, this heel grabber. If not for the grace and mercy of God, Jacob would have ruined everything beyond redemption. And we worship a God, Bird points out, who knows how to deal both in severity and in kindness with stupid sinners like ourselves. That God breaks us and breaks us down, and sometimes, if need be, he crushes us. And dear God, that hurts, and we are undone. But our Father is far more than a heavenly hammer for whom everything on earth looks like a nail. God breaks down and builds up. He shatters and shapes. He crucifies and resurrects. Isn't it amazing to think that while on the cross, dying for evil, dying for ambition, dying for all the sins of humanity, the humble Lord of love lifted up his heel and brought it down on the head of the serpent. In a splendid irony, the Father gave us a heel, a Jacob, to whom we can hold fast as we emerge from death to life again in him. Yeah. Any thoughts on any of that? The birth of these boys, the brothers Harry and Heel, the ambition, the early signs of sibling rivalry. I can tell you without saying too much, you know, I mean, I'm the oldest of, there's 3 of us boys came first, and then a sister who ended up a tomboy because what chance did she have otherwise? And then a youngest sister. And, you know, we boys are stubborn and 2 years apart, 2.5, 3 years apart. And, you know, and that's always been a thing. We've always kind of, you know, we kind of met in the middle. The youngest one acted a little older or thought he was a little older, and I would act more immaturely and come down to the middle one's age, and we could just get after each other on a level, right? And of course, just being honest, when a Lutheran family's oldest son becomes a pastor, that causes trouble. And my brothers and I have had really good heart-to-hearts over the years, just to get back on track together, and to see there's a difference between what that means to parents and what that means to me, and just that relationship. So siblings, siblings are quite the thing.
Well, with my three boys, so different
From each other.
And especially the middle one. And the middle one could be considered a golden-haired child. He is, according to his father and his stepmom. And my other two sons have so many times said, "Are you sure? Are you sure, Mom, that this is a brother?" So much rivalry between him and his other two brothers. And, I don't know what having three girls would be like, but I am here to tell you, it's not been a joyride to have those three boys.
Yeah.
It just hasn't. That rivalry is so intense, and I'm sure that's the way it was here.
Yeah. Good. Let's press on. Let's see that this rivalry is not just the children's doing. C.S. Lewis, there's a phrase, charity begins at home. It's from the scriptures, and I can't remember if it was Peter or James. I think it was one of them. I don't think it was one of Paul's letters. Talks about like charity begins with the church, like you take care of your people, and then also you take care of the world. But C.S. Lewis pointed out, like, charity begins at home, so does uncharity. And of course we get hurt the worst by people that we sit around the dinner table with or share a roof, with. And part of that is to make your house a place of blessing. You got to stop telling lies about home life, and just kind of be, get outside of the Leave It to Beaver portraits of how that goes. So we're gonna see in the next couple of verses here that this isn't just a sibling rivalry. So from verse 27, when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, living in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. All right, you already see what trouble's brewing? Favoritism, and I think it was also C.S. Lewis who said something like, God doesn't love any of us more or less than anyone else, but he loves us differently. And that's kind of how parenting goes, right? I mean, there's different approaches for different kids, work or don't work, and your love is expressed in different ways depending on what you have in common or how you bounce off of each other. So we've got the worst equation possible, which is mom's got her favorite, dad's got his favorite. The brothers were already going to be rivals, and the boys couldn't be more different. One's an indoor, one's in the basement playing video games all day, and mom's making him meatloaf and enabling him to just slack and do nothing with his life. Meanwhile, Dad and Esau are going out hunting and feeding the whole family because they actually get outside and do something, and right. So, man, what a recipe for disaster in this favoritism and these couple of deals. So this uncharity is beginning at home, and now we have Esau coming home absolutely hungry. From 29, once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field and he was famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished." Therefore he was called Edom. Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Edom is related to Esau, but it also means red. And so, he just is like, and he doesn't even, Chad Bird, I don't know if it's on this page, but he points out it's not even like, he doesn't even describe the food. He's just like, give me the red. Like the stew is like red, red. And as it describes his eating and drinking in verse 34, it's the way you would describe an animal eating. Like the Hebrew has words for an animal eating and a human eating, and it uses the animalistic one. So here's this hairy hunter coming home famished. I'll do anything just for a meal. He's going to call it red, and he's going to eat it. I'm sure the red is dripping down his mouth and beard while he eats like an animal. So it's not a very charitable picture of Esau either. You can think about the things that we'll sell or give up just for a moment's pleasure, or for a passing win. And of course, Jacob comes off even worse. Oh boy, it's such a good line from Bird on this, but I don't have it offhand. It's basically like Jacob saw an opportunity, where Esau saw like life and death. I'm dying of hunger. Jacob saw, oh, this is quite the. Go ahead.
Makes you wonder if he was such a skillful hunter. How come he was starving?
Yeah. How long did it take to find that last meal there? Exactly. That's a good point. Esau capitulates and Jacob capitalizes. Yeah. So it's not quite the same as price gouging after a hurricane, but it's equally despicable. And Jacob knew just how to play into his brother. He knows you can get your brother to do anything if you play into his appetites, and just catch him when he's hungry, and he'll do anything. So he's got one down. He's got the birthright. My goodness, right? And so already Esau has a case against Jacob. Once he's not so hungry anymore, and he realizes what he's done.
When it says sell his birthright, is there something other than just saying I'll do it, or does that?
Yeah,
I was wondering how he couldn't have come back later when he had his, wasn't quite so hungry and said, I never said that.
Yeah, it would seem like there's some legal document or right of something. Because the firstborn would inherit, and so then it'd be up to that firstborn to take care of the younger brothers and such as well. But they would be the head, and so to sell that birthright, it doesn't say that there's a written document, but there's something about that.
I just always wondered why he just wouldn't have said, I never said that.
I know, right?
After the fact, that's what kids would do.
Yeah, and we're going to see something similar with the blessing that Isaac accidentally gives Jacob. Is that once you've said the word, that's your word. I mean, nowadays, we don't trust anything on a handshake agreement. We're naive if we think we just got, handshake agreements. Unless you get it in writing, it's not real. Sometimes we learn that the hard way. But in different cultures, both now and in the past, and certainly in the ancient Near East and the biblical times and places, your word was your bond. You say something, it's done, and your word is death to your relationship. And